Mike Anson's reputation as a famous ghostwriter was rising. His hobby was investigating places or hotels notorious for hauntings, places people were too afraid to even visit. But fear wasn't in Mike's dictionary. He only believed in what he saw with his own eyes. He would spend a night in any so-called haunted place and then write about his experiences in his book. He had already written 3 horror tour guidebooks, 10 haunted mansions, 10 haunted graveyards, and 10 haunted lighthouses. All of them became very popular. After that, many hotel owners started calling Mike, claiming their hotels were haunted as well. They wanted Mike to feature their hotels in his books, but all those claims turned out to be fake. They only made such claims to promote their hotels. One day, while taking time off from work, Mike went to the beach to surf. Seeing people riding the high waves, he grabbed his surfboard and swam out to join them. While in the water, he noticed an airplane flying overhead with an insurance company advertisement. He stopped and began reading it. Suddenly, a strong wave struck his surfboard, knocking it against his head. Mike lost consciousness and began to drown. The wave eventually pushed him back onto the shore, unconscious. Just then, a man ran over to help him. At that exact moment, Mike suddenly regained consciousness, unharmed. The next day, Mike got back to work. He went to the post office, collected his mail, and then sat down at a cafe to read it. Most of the letters were advertisements for haunted hotels, but then he found a postcard with a photo of the Dolphin Hotel in New York. On the back of the postcard, it said, "Do not enter room 1408. Right then, Mike decided he had to go to room 1408 at the Dolphin Hotel. He called the hotel and asked for a reservation, but the receptionist refused to book him that room, saying he could have any other room except 1408. This seemed strange to Mike. He immediately began digging through old newspapers about the Dolphin Hotel. He discovered that in 1938, a factory owner had committed suicide by jumping out of room 1408. Not only that, more than a dozen people had died in that same room since then. After reading this, Mike's curiosity grew even stronger. He immediately called his publisher, Sam, who was in New York, and asked for help in booking the room. After consulting a lawyer, Sam told Mike that legally, if a hotel room is vacant, but the hotel refuses to provide it despite a guest's request, the guest can take legal action. Sam assured Mike that his lawyer would book room 1408 at the Dolphin Hotel. Sam then asked if Mike really wanted to return to New York, since that's where he was originally from. Mike had once been married, but after a falling out with his wife Lily, he left her and moved to Los Angeles a few years ago. His father had always advised him to reconcile with Lily, but Mike had ignored him, creating distance with his father too. Now, Mike only cared about his work, so he left for New York the very next night. Upon arriving at the Dolphin Hotel, Mike told the receptionist that he had booked room 1408 for tonight. The receptionist asked him to wait and then called the hotel manager, Gerald Olin. Olin invited Mike into his office and handed him an expensive bottle of wine, saying, "Mr. Anson, this $800 bottle of wine will be my gift to you if you choose another room instead of 1408. Mike replied, "Your gift is certainly valuable, Mr. Olin, but it won't stop me from staying in room 1408. Olin sighed and said, "You know how many deaths have occurred in that room. No one has ever lasted more than an hour in there. I can't risk another death in this hotel. Please, it's best if you don't stay in room 1408. But Mike just smiled and said, "Nice try, but you can't scare me. I'll stay in that room no matter what. I've been to other hotels where similar things happened, and nothing ever touched me." Olin gave a small smile and said, "You must have read in the papers that there were 22 deaths, right? But those were only the ones reported as natural deaths. In truth, there have been 56 deaths in room 1408, and all in very strange ways." He then showed Mike a file filled with photographs and details of all the people who had died in the room. Olin continued, "In 1912, a sewing machine salesman named Kevin was the first to die in that room. He slit his own throat and, before dying, was actually sewing his severed neck with a needle and thread. And another woman drowned in her own bowl of chicken soup while staying there." Mike was stunned. Olin handed him the file and said, "This has everything about the deaths in room 1408. You can sit here in my office and ask me anything for your book, but please, give up this idea of staying in that room." Mike paused for a moment in thought. Then he asked Olin for a glass of the expensive wine. Olin poured him one, but after taking a sip, Mike set down the glass and said, "Now give me the key to room 1408. Finally, Olin gave in to Mike's insistence and handed him the key to room 1408. Mike took the elevator to the 14th floor, where the room was located. Mike asked, If no one goes into that room, then it must have been closed for years. The bed sheets must be covered in dust. Olin replied, "The hotel staff clean that room once a month, but always under my supervision. We never stay in there for more than 10 minutes, and I make sure all the doors are kept open during cleaning." But even with these precautions, a few years ago, one of the maids got locked in the bathroom. She was trapped for only a few moments. When we pulled her out, we found she had gouged out both her eyes with scissors and was laughing hysterically. Mike burst out laughing at Olin's words. He said, "So, you're saying there's a ghost or a devil in that room?" Olin replied, "No, there's no ghost or devil in there. The room itself is the devil." When they reached the 14th floor, Olin said, "I can only go this far with you. I'm telling you one last time, don't go into that room." But Mike just smiled and said, "See you tomorrow morning, Mr. Olin." With that, Mike walked toward room 1408, while Olin returned to the elevator. As Mike read more about the strange deaths in that room, even he began to feel a little uneasy. Standing in front of the door, he saw a woman with her child entering room 1410, right next to 1408. Then, gathering courage, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. It was pitch dark. As soon as he turned on the lights, his expression changed. The room was surprisingly clean and luxurious. Relaxed, Mike closed the door behind him without worry. He went into the bathroom, wiped the sweat from his face with toilet paper, and then took out his tape recorder, something he always used to record his experiences in haunted places. Mike spoke into the recorder saying, "I have to admit, Olin, the manager did manage to scare me a little. But this is just an ordinary hotel room. There's a Bible in the drawer, a refrigerator in the living area filled with wine bottles and snacks, and a thermostat for the temperature. But it's stuck at a high level, making the room too hot. The carpet is stained, and there's an antique wardrobe that looks very old. Apart from a few simple items and some paintings, I don't see anything unusual here." Mike lay down on the bed, continuing his recording. Then he got up, went to the window, and commented that the view wasn't impressive either. Just buildings in front and the noise of traffic disturbing the peace. As he was recording, a song suddenly started playing. Shocked, Mike turned and saw the music coming from a radio on the bedside table next to a clock. Then he noticed 2 packets of chocolates placed neatly on the bedpost. This startled him, because he had just gotten up from that same bed earlier, and there had been no chocolates. Suspicious, Mike thought this must be Olin's trick. Maybe one of his men was hiding in the room to scare him. He began searching, opening doors one after another, but found no one. When he reached the bathroom, he was shocked. The toilet paper he had torn earlier to wipe his sweat was now back in place, perfectly folded. That was impossible, because Mike had only gone to the window for a short while. How could someone sneak in, leave chocolates, fix the toilet paper, and then disappear so quickly? Mike searched the entire room again, but found no trace of anyone. Feeling unsettled, he suddenly noticed a shadow inside a ventilation compartment on the ceiling. He shouted angrily, "Try harder, you idiot! These are useless pranks." Meanwhile, the room grew unbearably hot. Mike called the reception, but before he could say anything, the receptionist asked calmly, "Mr. Anson, would you like to check out now?" Annoyed, Mike replied, "Why would I check out? I called because I need someone to fix the thermostat." The receptionist answered, "We'll send an engineer to your room right away." Relieved, Mike sat back. He now suspected the room had a hidden chamber where someone might be hiding to scare him. At the same time, he couldn't shake the terrifying thought that countless people had died here in gruesome ways, and maybe their presence still lingered. He quickly turned off the lights and took out his ultraviolet lamp, scanning the room. Though the room looked clean, the UV light revealed bloodstains on the bed and the walls. Seeing this, Mike could imagine the horrific deaths that had happened there. Turning the lights back on, he sat on the sofa, continuing to record everything. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Mike jumped in fear, but quickly composed himself and opened it. A man was standing outside, the engineer sent to fix the thermostat. Mike tried to let him in, but the door seemed stuck. He pulled with all his strength until it suddenly swung open, almost knocking him backward. The engineer asked if the thermostat was overheating or overcooling. Mike replied, "Why don't you come in and see for yourself?" But the engineer flatly refused, saying he would explain how to fix it from the doorway. Mike had no choice but to follow his instructions. With the engineer's guidance, he managed to fix the thermostat. When Mike turned back to thank him, the engineer was already gone. Mike closed the door, went back inside, and picked up the bottle of wine the manager had given him. Sitting down on the bed, he began drinking. Suddenly, The radio next to him started playing the same song again. Startled, Mike dropped his glass. He angrily turned off the radio, but it switched itself back on, this time setting a 1-hour timer. Mike backed away in fear. At that moment, he remembered what Olin had told him. No one should stay in that room for more than an hour. Although Mike still thought this was an all-in trick and cursed them under his breath, everything suddenly went silent. Confused, he went to the window and tried to listen to the traffic outside, but there was no sound. Frustrated, Mike turned to walk away from the window when the glass shattered, crushing his hand. Crying out in pain, he managed to pull his hand free and stumbled into the bathroom to rinse the blood off with cold water. But instead of cold water, scalding hot water gushed from the tap, burning his wound. Writhing in pain, Mike crouched in the corner and angrily kicked the tap shut. He came out of the bathroom and wrapped his handkerchief around his injured hand. Suddenly, the same song started playing on the radio again. Fed up, Mike quickly unplugged it, but the timer on the radio clock didn't stop. He was stunned. Just then, the phone rang. Mike picked it up, and the receptionist said, "Mr. Anson, the sandwich you ordered will take another 10 minutes. We apologize for the inconvenience." Mike was shocked. He hadn't ordered any sandwich. He replied, "Okay, I've lost. Stop this trickery. I need to check out right now because I'm injured. Book me a taxi. I need to go to the hospital." But the receptionist, ignoring what he said, began reciting the kitchen menu. Furious, Mike cursed at her and hung up. Now completely fed up, he decided he didn't want to stay there even for another moment. He grabbed his bag, went to the door, and tried to open it, but it was jammed again. Despite his best efforts, it wouldn't open. Thinking it might be locked, Mike tried using his key, but as he turned it, the key broke like a twig and got stuck inside the lock. Mike then stuck a knife into the keyhole and somehow managed to unlock the door. When he tried to open it by grabbing the doorknob, the knob broke off in his hand. Fed up, Mike kicked the door, trying to break it open, and began calling for help, but the door didn't budge, and his voice didn't carry outside. Then, when he looked through the peephole, he saw his own eyes staring back at him. Terrified, Mike backed away from the door. He ran to the window and started shouting for help, but the noise of the traffic drowned his voice. Suddenly, he noticed a man sitting near the window in the building opposite. Mike shouted for help. Luckily, the man saw him, stood up, and came to the window. Mike signaled him to call the police, but instead of helping, the man began imitating him. Everything Mike did, the man copied, like a mirror image. Mike was shocked. Because of the darkness, he couldn't clearly see the man's face. He picked up a lamp and shone at his face. At the same moment, the man also shone a lamp at his own face. What Mike saw stunned him. The man was his exact double. Suddenly, someone appeared behind the duplicate Mike and struck him on the head with a hammer. When Mike turned around in fear, he saw the same person standing behind him with the hammer. The man swung it at him again, but Mike dodged and backed into a corner, closing his eyes. When he opened them, the man had vanished. Relieved, Mike got up, went back to the window, picked up the lamp, and threw it down, hoping someone below would notice and call the police. But to his shock, the lamp disappeared halfway through the air. Mike was bewildered. He couldn't understand what was happening. Then he remembered the expensive bottle of wine Olin had given him, and the chocolates he had eaten. Mike became convinced that the wine or the chocolates must have been laced with some kind of drug, causing him to hallucinate. Mike tried to control his mind, but then he heard a voice from the living room. "Daddy, I can see you." Hearing this, Mike completely lost his composure, because the voice belonged to his daughter, Katie, who had died a few years earlier. Mike ran to the living room, but no one was there. The next moment, Katie's voice echoed from every corner of the room. Frightened, Mike felt as if he was getting lost in his own thoughts. He curled up in one place and sat down. Then Mike's eyes drifted toward the window. He saw a man and a woman jumping out of the window one after the other. Immediately afterward, he heard a cracking sound in the living room. When Mike rushed there, he saw a large crack forming in the wall, and from it, a stream of blood was flowing out. All these events trapped Mike in a web of reality and illusion. He began to feel as if he was dreaming, because such bizarre things could only happen in a dream. Mike thought that if this really was a dream, he could do anything without dying. Thinking this, Mike decided to try escaping through the window to the next room. He looked at the floor map on the door and calculated that the other room's window was just 18 feet away on the outside. He climbed out of his window, carefully placing his feet on a narrow ledge, and began sliding toward the other room. The window was 9 steps away. Risking his life, he somehow managed to crawl 9 steps forward. But then he was horrified. There were no windows in any of the other rooms. For miles, the only visible window was room 1408. Panicked, Mike's steps faltered, and he nearly slipped to his death. Somehow, he gathered his courage, steadied himself, and carefully made his way back to his own window. Just as he was about to climb back in, an unknown woman suddenly attacked him from inside. Startled, Mike lost his balance and began to fall, but he luckily managed to cling to the building's wall. At that moment, the same woman jumped out of the window, and the window started closing. Using all his strength, Mike pulled himself back into the room before it shut completely. He barely survived. Now, Mike was convinced this wasn't a dream. Otherwise, with his strong will, he would have woken up long ago. When Mike looked at the floor map again, he saw that all the other hotel rooms had vanished, leaving only room 1408 in the middle of the hotel. Looking around, he noticed that even the window of his room had now been bricked up. Seeing this, Mike felt like his head was going to burst. At that moment, he remembered his phone. He quickly took it out of his bag, but there was no signal. Desperate, he opened his laptop, and fortunately, the internet was working. He immediately made a video call to his wife, Lily. Thankfully, she answered, but she was furious with Mike for abandoning her earlier. Mike apologized and begged for her help. He said, "Lily, please call the police and tell them I'm trapped in room 1408 at the Dolphin Hotel." But Lily grew even angrier when she realized Mike was in New York and hadn't come to see her. Mike kept pleading for help while Lily kept complaining. Suddenly the fire alarm went off, activating the sprinkler system. Water sprayed heavily from above, drenching everything. It hit Mike's laptop, and the device shut down instantly. Furious, Mike threw a piece of wood at the sprinkler, managing to stop the water. Just then, Mike noticed a ventilation vent near the sprinkler. An idea struck him. Maybe he could escape through the vents. He pried it open with his knife and crawled inside. He reached the vent of another room and peeked down. Inside, he saw a woman sitting with a child on her lap. Mike desperately called out to her for help, but something strange happened. His own voice echoed from the room below. At that moment, the woman looked up at him. To his shock, the woman was none other than his wife, Lily, holding their daughter, Katie, in her lap. It was a scene straight from Mike's past. The sight left him completely stunned. He moved forward in fear and soon saw another ventilation grill. When he looked down, he once again witnessed a scene from his past, an argument between him and his father. These visions reminded Mike of his old mistakes. Years ago, Mike and his wife, Lily, were living happily with their daughter, Katie. But one day, they learned that Katie had a terminal illness and would only live for a few more days. This news brought devastation to their lives. Lily lost all hope. During Katie's final moments, she focused on teaching her religious beliefs. She would tell Katie, "One day everyone dies and goes to heaven. You too will go there, where you'll meet God and find eternal happiness." But Mike was an atheist. He wanted Lily to stop filling Katie's mind with religious teachings and instead give her hope and courage. He believed that boosting Katie's morale could help her fight the illness. Then, one day, Katie passed away. Crushed by grief, Mike blamed Lily for their daughter's death. He argued with her, saying that if Lily had encouraged Katie instead of talking about God, Katie might have survived. The scene Mike was witnessing now showed his father telling him that he was wrong to blame Lily. But Mike had been angry at his father too. He eventually left both Lily and his father behind and moved to Los Angeles. Since then, Lily had lived alone, and Mike's father had spent his old age in a nursing home. His father glared at him in the vision, and a frightened Mike crawled deeper into the vent, but there was still no way out. As he moved further, he came across a corpse covered in dust and cobwebs. It looked like the body had been there for many years. When Mike got closer, he noticed a needle and thread around the man's neck. He realized this was Kevin, the very first guest of room 1408, the man who had tried to sew his own throat shut. Suddenly, the corpse moved and came to life. Horrified, Mike froze, unable to breathe. The dead man lunged forward and grabbed Mike's legs. Struggling desperately, Mike kicked the corpse in the head, cracking its skull, and managed to escape. He ran through the ventilation shaft and jumped back into room 1408. Once inside, Mike gasped for breath, trying to calm himself. To ease his mind, he thought about drinking. But when he opened the refrigerator, he was shocked to see Olin, the hotel manager, standing inside. Olin said, "Tell me, Mr. Enslin, do you believe in ghosts now, or are you still doubting them?" But Mike still refused to believe. Angry, he shouted, "I knew it, Olin! This is all your trick. What do you want from me?" Olin calmly replied, "You don't believe in ghosts or God, do you?" You mock people and hurt their faith. Tell me, why do you think people believe in ghosts? For fun? For entertainment? That's not the truth. People believe because it gives them hope, that even after death, a soul lives on. Enraged, Mike yelled at Olin. But in reality, Olin wasn't there. He was shouting at the refrigerator. He slammed it shut, picked up the Bible lying nearby and muttered, "Fine, I was wrong. Ghosts exist. And if ghosts exist, then God must exist too." Mike opened the Bible, but to his shock, all the pages were blank. Suddenly, he began seeing another scene from his past. His daughter Katie lay on her hospital bed in her final moments, while Lily reassured her, "After death, you'll go to God, where you'll find good friends." Mike had been devastated hearing those words. He then saw the day when Katie was cremated, and he remembered angrily telling Lily that if she had given Katie hope instead of talking about God, she might have been saved. But watching the scene again now, Mike realized the painful truth. He had been wrong all along. Nothing could have saved Katie. At that very moment, the cold in the room grew so intense that ice began to form everywhere. Shivering, Mike wrapped himself in a blanket, sat in a corner, and started lighting whatever he could find in the room to create warmth. He began to feel as though he had entered hell itself, suffering the consequences of his past sins. Just then, Mike heard a voice from his laptop. It was his wife, Lily. Mike immediately opened it and was relieved to see Lily on the video call. He quickly begged her to call the police and send help. Lily told him she had already called the police and sent them to room 1408, but when they got there, the room was empty. Hearing this, Mike was shocked. Lily reassured him, "Don't worry, I'll be there to pick you up in 15 minutes. When Mike looked at his watch, he saw only 2 minutes remaining. He told Lily she had to hurry, or he would die. But then, Mike's own image on the laptop screen started speaking to Lily. It told her to come to the room in 15 minutes. Hearing this, Mike realized the room was now trying to lure Lily in as well. He desperately tried to stop her from coming to the hotel, but the call disconnected. Suddenly, the room began to collapse. A violent storm erupted, and rain poured down. At that moment, all the paintings on the walls seemed to come alive. Enraged, Mike struck a painting of the ocean with a stick, shattering it. Seawater gushed out of the painting, flooding the room until it was completely submerged. Mike was pulled under. The next instant, a shocking scene unfolded. Mike opened his eyes and found himself lying on a beach, wearing surfing gear. It was the same incident when he had once drowned while surfing, and the waves had thrown him ashore. A man who saw Mike's condition came to help and took him to the hospital. When Mike regained consciousness, he found himself on a hospital bed with Lily sitting by his side. Confused, Mike asked Lily if they were in New York. Lily told him they were in Los Angeles. She explained that while surfing, his board had hit his head, knocking him out, and he had been brought to the hospital. Mike was shocked. He told Lily that he had been trapped in room 1408 at the Dolphin Hotel and had called her from there. But Lily insisted she had received no call from him. Mike was stunned. After being discharged from the hospital, Mike went with Lily to a restaurant and told her everything that had happened in room 1408. Lily told him it was all just a bad dream. But then, Mike noticed a woman in the restaurant. She was the same woman he had seen jumping from the window in room 1408. In the blink of an eye, though, a different woman appeared in her place. Mike realized it was just another hallucination. The next day, Mike went to the post office to collect his letters. He searched for the postcard from the Dolphin Hotel but couldn't find it. He then began investigating the hotel's history through newspapers. Previously, he had read about a factory owner who had committed suicide by jumping from room 1408 of the Dolphin Hotel. But now, the same newspaper reported a different cause of death. The man had jumped off a bridge instead. Reading this, Mike began to believe the entire incident had been a nightmare he'd experienced after fainting while surfing. However, that nightmare had forced him to face his misdeeds. Feeling ashamed for leaving Lily and his father, Mike went to them and apologized. But the dream stayed with him, burned into his memory like reality. To free himself from it, Mike wrote an entire book about the experience, and named it 1408. He then went to the post office to send the book to his publisher, Sam, in New York. He told the clerk there that it needed to be sent urgently. As the employee turned to him, Mike was shocked. The man was a waiter from the Dolphin Hotel. Looking around, Mike saw that every employee in the post office was from the hotel. Suddenly, they all grabbed weapons and started demolishing the building. As the post office walls crumbled, the walls of room 1408 appeared on the other side. Mike's head started spinning. In the next moment, he was back in room 1408. This revealed the horrifying truth. The events of room 1408 had not been a dream. They were real. Mike still hadn't been able to get out of the hotel room. This time, the room was in ruins. Mike couldn't understand why all this was happening to him. Suddenly, he saw his daughter Katie standing there. Mike hugged his daughter and started crying. But then, the radio suddenly started playing again. And in that very moment, Mike's daughter turned to ashes. Distressed, he began throwing things around the room and finally, exhausted, collapsed on the floor. Just then, the 1-hour timer on the radio clock ran out. Mike was back in his hotel room, where everything was once again clean and tidy. The 1-hour timer had started ticking again. The room's phone rang. Mike picked it up and asked, "Why don't you kill me? Why are you torturing me like this?" The answer came, "Mr. Enslin, we give each of our guests 2 choices. You can enjoy our service repeatedly every hour, or you can check out using our express checkout service." Hearing this, Mike placed the phone receiver on the table and walked into the living room. There he saw a noose, which meant the express checkout service was nothing but taking one's own life and leaving the room and the world forever. Now, Mike understood why every guest who stayed in the room ended up taking their own life. In reality, there were no ghosts or devils in that room. The room itself was the devil, torturing its guests by forcing them to relive their past mistakes and putting them in horrifying situations. People were pushed to the point of losing their sanity. Those who survived were given 2 choices: either suffer the torment every single hour, or die in the room's prescribed way and escape the world. This was the reason no one had ever returned alive from that cursed room. At that very moment, Mike saw his body hanging from a noose in the mirror. He picked up the phone again and said, "I'll check out, but in my own way." After saying this, Mike hung up, but the phone rang again. When he picked it up, he heard a voice say, "Sorry, sir, I forgot to tell you. Your wife called a while ago. She'll be here in 5 minutes." Hearing this, Mike said, "Do whatever you want with me, but please leave my wife alone." Suddenly, the phone melted in his hand. Mike thought for a moment, then picked up a liquor bottle and sat on the sofa. He tore his handkerchief, stuffed it inside the bottle, and made a makeshift bomb. Then Mike said, "I've been selfish all my life. But now, I won't let anyone else be sacrificed for this room. I will die, but I will also burn this damn room to ashes." Saying this, he lit the bottle and threw it into the bedroom, setting the entire room ablaze. Mike sat calmly on the sofa, smoking a cigarette. Meanwhile, the fire spread through the hotel, causing chaos everywhere. At the same time, Lily arrived and, seeing the fire, begged the fire brigade to save her husband, Mike. Just then, a massive explosion occurred, and Mike was burned to death along with that cursed room. With that, the ink on the door of room number 1408 began to flow away like blood, signifying the end of the room forever. A few days later, Mike's funeral was held. His wife, Lily, buried his body near their daughter Katie's grave. Afterward, as Lily was leaving, the hotel manager, Olin, came to meet her. Olin said, "I'm sorry for Mike's death, but it wasn't in vain. By destroying room 1408, Mike helped us. Thanks to him, no one will ever die in that room again." He then handed Lily a box and said, "This box contains some of Mike's belongings, which we found while cleaning the room." Heartbroken, Lily wasn't in the state to take it. She refused the box and left. Olin then returned to his car, carrying the box with him. He opened it and found Mike's tape recorder inside. When he played it, he heard Mike's daughter Katie's voice, repeatedly calling out for her father. Startled, Olin looked into the rearview mirror and saw a little girl standing behind the car, calling for her father. Then, he suddenly saw Mike in the back seat, completely burned. Olin immediately turned around, but no one was there. Thinking it was just his imagination, Olin laughed nervously, started the car, and drove away. With this, the story returned to room number 1408. Mike was still there, standing near the window, puffing on a cigarette. Although the room had been burned down, he heard his daughter calling for him once again. Following her voice, Mike walked through the door. Mike was finally free from that cursed room, but only as a spirit. Friends, if you liked this video and got lost in the story while watching, please subscribe to support us, so we can keep bringing you more videos like this. Thanks for watching.